Deep inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Hello again, everybody. Today I'll be giving a brief lesson on classical Chinese characters with a little bit of spoken Chinese. I'm not a classical Chinese expert or a Chinese expert at all. I just studied spoken Chinese in my undergraduate degree and classical Chinese in grad school. And so I would like to offer some of my students at my school and whoever else is watching these basic tips in the beginning lessons of written classical Chinese and modern. And I'll talk a little bit about the differences. And then afterwards, I'll do a philosophy for children and adults reading, and we can all raise philosophical questions together again. Hope you enjoy. So let's begin with talking about the origin of classical Chinese characters. So how are they created? There was a poem written by a scholar way back, and his name is Zhang Yan, and I'll read the poem to you. I will attempt to read the poem in Chinese and then read an English translation. 节有四目，阳光天象，阴历无。乌龟之计，遂定数字之形。造化不能藏其秘，故天于素。令怪不能动其形，故鬼也。哭事实也书画同体而未分。And then one of the English translations says, Cangjie had 4 eyes, and he looked up at the sky and observed every object in the universe. According to the traces of the birds and the turtles, he created the shapes of characters. Because of the creation of characters, nature could not hide its secrets anymore. So millet rain drops from the sky. Ghosts and spirits can't hide their traces anymore, so ghosts cry at night. At this time, characters and pictures were co-substantial and had not yet been separated. And so what we conclude from that is, in Chinese language, writing and painting share the same origin and root. And here's a little picture that goes along with that poem of Cangjie drawing the characters or the images that he saw in the universe, which began the classical Chinese characters. And I want to really briefly about the difference between traditional and simplified characters. So originally, the traditional Chinese characters are very intricate and have a lot of different meaning in them. Not that we lost that entirely with simplified, but some stuff was taken out. So for example, as you can see here in this chart, we have the character for fish, which originally had water underneath at the bottom, the water radical, and then that was taken out and turned into a line to make it simplified. And then the second character here is actually one of my favorite Chinese and Japanese characters, I, which means love. And here there's a heart radical in it, but then when it was simplified, the heart radical was taken out. So you can see that there's a major difference here. Originally, the heart radical, which actually looks like a physical heart, is absent in the simplified version. So this is just one example of how modern Chinese is very different than traditional. We get a lot more pictographic images and characters in traditional Chinese. And there are 6 principles, or 6 main principles for composing Chinese characters. So there are different types. So for example, we have the first kind, which is resemble form or pictographic characters. For example, if we look at the end here, that's a drawing of a mountain. So way back, they first drew the mountain, and then the character was developed, shan, which means mountain, and that's this little guy right here, and it literally looks like a mountain. So that's one type of character. Another type is form/image and the sound. So if we look at this sound here, and I guess this makes up 90% of Chinese characters, so this is the majority. The character for sunny is qing, and it has zhi, which is sun, and qing, which is green. The qing is the sound we get for sunny, which is qing, and then we also have the character sun on the side. So we have both the sound and the image of the sun and the sound from green. The third type is combined meanings. So on this example, we have celestial being as an example. Celestial being has ren on the side, which means man, and then a mountain, shan, on the right side. And together, the picture of the man and the picture of the mountain together means celestial being. So they're combined meanings together to form a single word. A fourth kind we have here is to indicate things, which, for example, we have a picture of ben, or the character for ben, which is root, and it consists of mu, which is the character for wood, with a little stroke at the very bottom here. It's kind of hard to see with this image, but there's a little line at the bottom of tree or wood, and that indicates the base or the root of the tree. So that's describing a very specific part of something. And then the last two I think are less common, but I'll describe them too, is loaned and borrowed. So on this example we have dou, originally referred to as an ancient sacrificial vessel, but it's later used and borrowed for the sense of being. The last type is evolving and deriving, and the example we're given here is kao, which is to test or to verify, kao, and then later we have lao, which means old, and so they're related. They have similar designs and they have similar sounds, but they mean very different things. So though that was a brief, very brief summary of some basic elements of Chinese characters. Now I will do a little bit of a calligraphy lesson with you guys. As you can see here, I have my practice sheet, which you can buy online, and I also have some traditional calligraphy paper sheets right here, which you can see. I used to practice my little characters. I'm not very good, but this will help you just get a flavor for what calligraphy practice is like. So I have my calligraphy pens here. my calligraphy brushes, that is, different sizes. I don't have a inkwell, which is more traditional. You would have your inkwell where you make your own ink, and then you dip your brush into it and then brush on the paper. But it's also okay to write your characters with pencils. Right here I have my Chinese pencil for writing my characters, and I also have a basic mechanical pencil, and both work. And then lastly, I have this pre-made calligraphy pen that has ink in it. It's not as nice as a brush, but this has a little bit of ink and it kind of emulates a brush style. So for today, I'll teach you just a couple of characters. So the first are radicals, rather. So radicals are components of Chinese characters. Like we saw before with celestial beings, we had Ren, a man, and then we had Shan for mountain. So those two things separately were each radicals, and together made the character celestial being. So these ones that I'll be teaching you are just basic components of characters called radicals. So the first one I have here is this guy, which is called a line or gun. And it's good to have a reference, so we'll leave that there, and I'll write it in pencil once. So you want to make sure your proportions are like the image that you have, and it's even better to have like an original on your paper, which you can get online. But I will just draw this for you. So it's very simple. You just draw a line down. And now I'll show you an attempt at writing it with a calligraphy brush or these pre-made brushes. So there's a little dot at the top, so you hold it and then drop it. There's a very particular way of holding your brush, which I'm no expert at. I used to know, but it's been so long since I've done calligraphy. But this is a very rough way of holding your pen. But for now, we're going to just practice writing in whatever way is comfortable for you. But it is an art that takes a lot of discipline and practice if you want to get really good at it. It takes years of really getting good and just doing single strokes just like that. Okay, so for the next radical we'll do is this guy, which is the character / radical E, which is 1. It's an ideograph representing heaven, an horizon, or a bar. So I'll write that for you guys. Just right down the middle. And then an attempt at writing it with the calligraphy pen. There we go. Okay, and then the next radical we can practice is, I think this is a slash. Yes, slash or pie. Again, this is another component we see in a lot of characters. So it's the reason why we practice our radicals is because this is preparing us to write much more complex characters because they are made up of these radicals. For the rest, I'll just write in the ink pen, or attempt to. Okay. one of the things that my calligraphy teacher taught me was that it's really important to relax. You can see a person's mental state in their calligraphy, he would say, and he would watch us while we were writing and see how our shoulders were tense and our necks were tense and our wrists and our arms were tense, and he could also see it in our writing. And so I just was mindful of that, and I saw, oh, my neck and my body really tense because I'm worried about what people are going to think of my writing. But for this practice, it's very a mindfulness-based practice, so you have to try to relax. And eventually, it'll just flow, but it takes a lot of discipline first. All right. So the next one is, I think this is a dash, or a dot. This is a dot. A zhu. Pretty straightforward. I mean, it's not straightforward. People will practice these characters a lot. Even these tiny little particles, they could keep writing it over and over and over just to master that one particle. But it's straightforward insofar as you want to just get the idea of what this particle is. The next one is called a hook. A jue. Jue. Put that there. A little bit of cat hair on my pen. I just got it off. There we go. Okay. We have two, the character two, or R. R. The ideograph meaning heaven and earth. I really like that, because heaven and earth are above and below. Oh yes, I forgot. It's also really nice to have background music when you're practicing calligraphy. I like to listen to relaxing cello music or piano. I've been listening to Studio Ghibli piano music lately, and it's really great for bringing out your artistic side, I think. So with this character, you don't want the lines to be too far apart, and you don't want them to be too close either, and that's a really hard middle way to find, but it is possible with practice. Yeah, my characters are not great, but they will get better with time if I practice. And lastly, I wanted to show you this particle, which is, again, one of my favorite particles. It's the heart. And it does make me sad that the heart was taken out of the character for love. This is called Sheen. It's also translated as mind, and we often have a difficult time when we translate text because this character can mean heart and mind. So it's a picture, literally a picture of a heart. We'll write it right here. One dot on the inside of this little loop here and one dot on the outside is how it's represented in some images at least. We see these radicals in Chinese and Japanese. Kokoro. Kokoro is what the word is in Japanese. Kokoro. And in Japanese, the word for love is also I. Well, I hope you liked that lesson. I don't have enough time to record a story today, so we'll just leave it at that. It's so lovely spending time with you, and I'd love to hear your feedback. And we'll do more philosophy lessons later. And I really do love Chinese because like the images are just, it's so beautiful, and really learning how to write it, it's just, you can get kind of like swept into writing calligraphy and writing Chinese characters, and they just kind of like are natural too. They reflect nature, and you can see nature in the images, and it's so beautiful. It's a really good practice too for when you have this time. And it's good to even practice calligraphy out near nature, where you can get really into the flow, or the Tao, they say in Taoist Chinese practice.